Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnan Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhu. So we were discussing the conversation which took place on on 12th December on 16th December 1912. And the last point which we discussed was that Vijay Krishna Goswami had a vision of Sri Krishna in Dhaka. He even felt after his passing away, after his Mahasamadhi, he felt as if yes, the master has come and touched him. So that was one event which we discussed last time. Then Holy Mother is trying to share some of the reminiscences of the days after the passing away of Sri Krishna in Kashipur. All of you know that it was at the Kashipur Garden House, which was rented by all the devotees, including Suren Mitra and others. They had contributed, and all the expenses of Sri Krishna were borne by the householder disciples, and the would-be monastic disciples were all serving by staying and in that Kashipur Garden House, which was a big garden house, a very quiet place. And though it was in the suburbs of Kolkata, but still it was a very quiet place, and there was a special room for Holy Mother, though it was very small on the terrace, where she could independently live without sharing, because all the other male members of the household, who were all the future direct disciples, including Swami Vivekananda and all, they used to stay in the very big hall on the ground floor. Those of you who have seen the Kashipur Garden House, you will see that on the first floor is Thakur's room, the room where he practically stayed. He could not come down himself because he was so weak, and they had made a special bed which was very low so that he could easily, I mean, he rarely had any need to walk down because everything was in his room. And there were, round the clock, there were monastic disciples who would serve him, who were serving him. So here, Holy Mother is telling about the days of service, how Yogen Maharaj, Swami Yogananda, and others, Swami Sharadananda, looked after the mother's needs also, even after the passing away of Sri Krishna. Because when he was alive, Holy Mother herself was cooking food for him, special diet food, in the sense he used to take very little semi-solid or semi-liquid food because he could not eat. His throat was, used to get choked up because of cancer. But Holy Mother knew what the simple suji payas, very, very thin payas with lot of water, watery payas they used to, or with lot of milk. So they used to just force him, give him a liquid diet. So that was what Holy Mother normally cooked during the last days. Now she says after the passing away of Sri Krishna, his Mahasamadhi, after his Mahasamadhi in August, uh, the direct disciples, they thought, where will Holy Mother go? She was the only non-monastic member there. Most of the others were monastic, those who had decided to take the monastic vows. And they were free, so they could stay. But the problem was that it was a rented house. And as soon as the devotee stopped paying the rent, that house has to be vacated. So where will Holy Mother go? Now, Swamiji says during that time he was called by Sri Krishna before his passing away and entrusted the whole responsibility of seeing that the boys don't go home. They don't go home because there was lot of pressure from their parents and also some most of the householder devotees. Nobody wants anybody. I mean, most of the householders, they want other people. He said, "What is wrong? Thakur was in the household. Why can't we marry? We have to marry." So they used to give such advice. But Naren was categorically told by Swamiji what to do. He was clear about his mission. Only thing, he did not have a place. They did not have a monastery where they could stay. And moreover, they knew that this garden house rent was paid and they could still live for a few months. So they requested, Naren and the other youngsters said, let us continue to stay here at the Kashipur garden house. Even after the passing away, they thought till the monastery is formed. Later on, of course, they rented the Baranagar dilapidated structure. But before that, they thought if we stay in Kashipur, then we can, even if people are not willing to pay a subscription or pay money to maintain, because after Thakur's passing away, the purpose, the devotees thought, now why should we contribute? Because these boys can go home. They have their homes. Why should we feed them? They had no idea that these boys were very keen to beg and eat. So they said, we will, at least for some days. Naren said, let us stay here at least for some days to help mother get over the shock of Sri Ramakrishna's passing away. So they said, what is the harm if you stay for a few days more? But you don't have to supply food and other things. We don't have to buy using your money. We will go and beg. We are anyway begging. We are supposed to beg for ourselves and somehow maintain ourselves. So we will beg food. But Ramchandra Datta was one of the most prominent householder disciples who was of the opinion that all the boys should go home. They should not be embracing monastic life. He said, because Sri Ramakrishna had not publicly told these things. He had called Narendra very quietly, confidentially, and many of the young boys also were perhaps not aware that it was given the responsibility, because there will be a big big trouble, because most of the parents of these young youths who had decided to embrace monastic life would come and try to persuade their sons to come back home. Narendra himself was facing a lawsuit and somehow he had managed to solve the problem. But everybody knew, and Thakur also knew, that after my going away, till he was there, nobody could, he took a lot of care that these children are not tainted by, they don't go back to worldly life. But after his passing away, somebody has to take the responsibility. And Swami Vivekananda was told. So he said, we will feed Holy Mother also, because she had no other place to go. Of course, she could go to Jairambati or Kamarpukur. Kamarpukur was an ancestral house of Thakuri. She could easily go there. And also she could go to her mother's house in Jairambati. But these people thought that mother is an inspiring figure. In fact, she was the Sangha Janani. They had perhaps got a hint from Sri Ramakrishna, or maybe Sri Ramakrishna had directly told them, okay, she is my Shakti and she has come to carry forward the mission. So, Sri Ramakrishna had definitely told Narendranath that she will be if you have any problem, you can approach her. And that is what they did. Sharat Maharaj, Yogananda, any problem, even with the monastery, whether it is the Baranagar monastery, Alam Bazar, or even Belur Math, as long as mother was alive, they turned to her for all the major decisions. So Swamiji knew that, and he wanted mother to be staying at least as far as possible in this Kashipur garden house. So he said, but the householder disciples did not like. They said, we will take care of the mother. It's our responsibility. Either she will stay at Balram's house, or she can even go to Kamarpukur. We'll arrange everything. But for that reason, you people don't have to stay here. They were afraid that the expenses of these boys also they have to bear. So there was a worldly type of desire in Ramchandra Datta, who wanted them to go back home so that the burden is reduced. They don't have to pay. They were afraid that these young people, they didn't know the wonderful spirit of these young monastic youths. They were ready to beg food. They said, we are monks, we can easily beg. Why should we depend on the householder's money? Just for the sake of Thakur and his treatment, they had agreed. So The house was given up because the rent, nobody was willing to pay the rent, and Holy Mother, for a few months, she went to Brindavan and others. But Swami, I mean, Balram Bose had arranged for her trip with Yogananda and others. But Holy Mother says the house had to be given up, and then pointing to Udbodhan, which was built at that time, he said, I can't stay at that place, Udbodhan. I can stay at that place at Udbodhan only as long as Sharat is there. So all the disciples were, uh, this Arupananji was a bit surprised. Why? If Sharat is not there, what will happen? Can you not stay in Udbodhan? This house was built for you. So she says, after him, I do not see anyone who can shoulder my. She had so much faith in Swami Saradananda. That is why he was given that name. It was, Swamiji knew that in future, Holy Mother has a big role to play. And Swami Sharadanandji was the one who took a loan and built the house in 1910 with so much difficulty. They had so many financial problems. Even Belur Math land could be purchased only because of the donation of Henrietta Muller, and the building. So many Western devotees contributed a lot for building Belur Math. But obviously, Mother cannot stay in a monastery. So they were all worried. But Udbodhan was built specifically so that she could stay. That is why it is known as Mayarbadi, the house of Mother. It was built by Sharadanandji, and he wished that Mother stays here permanently instead of going to Kamarpukur, Jairambati and other Balram Bose's house. Why should she depend on others? She should have an independent house. So that is why Swami Sharadanandji, Holy Mother felt, could bear his burden. Then he says, before that, Yogananda was there. But Yogananda unfortunately passed away even before Swami Vivekananda passed away in 1902. He passed away in 1901. So Holy Mother knew that after Yogananda, it was Swami Shardananda who took all the responsibility. And there is Krishna Lal too, calm and quiet. He was a disciple of Yogen. Sharat can look after me very well. Swami Shardananda, that is Sharat, Swami Shardananda is my burden bearer. So she believed that it was Swami Shardananda who, for a long period, till Holy Mother was alive, he saw to her, and even he decided to just stay in Udbodhan, even though he was the general secretary of the whole Ramakrishna mission. He had to go for meetings, but he did not mind going there. But he refused to leave Udbodhan because he found that if I go away, Holy Mother will have problem living there. And she also depended a lot. Anything, any planning, anywhere to go, Swami Shardananda would arrange. Then another that disciple asked, Arupananji asked, can Maharaj or Swami Brahmananda, who he was known as Raja Maharaj, or simply Maharaj? So when you said Maharaj in those days, it was Swami Brahmananda. He said, can Brahmananda not take his responsibility? Why do you think only Shardananda can do? So Mother says, no, Rakhal is not of that temperament. He can't face troubles physically. There are some people who can face mental problems and issues of the mind, but they are not so comfortable with physical troubles. Because Raja Maharaj's health was also not good, and moreover, he belonged to an aristocratic family. So serving did not come naturally to him. So unless you have that aptitude to serve others, have that humility to serve the seniors, serve the guru, you can't do it. If one has a lot of ego, then they won't be, won't have the humility to offer service to the guru. So she knew that Brahmananda belonged to another category, and he was no doubt spiritual, a highly spiritual, a spiritual giant. But at the same time, his way was not through service. As Swami Brahmananda and Yogananda spent most of their life serving either the Holy Mother or humanity. But Brahmanandji was a different type of personality. He would prefer to do a lot of japa rather than serve others. So mother says he cannot face troubles physically, he can do so intellectually or through someone. But his administration capacity enabled him to select the right people to seek to serve either Holy Mother or all the other people, members of the order who were sick and needed some kind of monitoring or care. So he used to, Brahmananji could arrange through someone he could serve, but he himself was not of, even when Sri Ramakrishna was alive, it was Latu Maharaj who used to look after his physical needs, take him for a walk and take him to the bathroom when he was unable to even walk alone. It was Swami Adbhutananda or Latu Maharaj and others who did it, but Brahmananji was never expected to do. He always believed in a lot of japa and he always used to be in a very contemplative mood. Even Yogananda was like that. He did not take part in all the karma yoga and all the other activities of the Ramakrishna mission. But one thing is there, he had tremendous love for Holy Mother. So, and he was Holy Mother's first disciple as well. So, his most, I mean, all his interest was that as long as I am alive, I will serve the Holy Mother to the best of my ability. So he took it upon himself, Swami Yogananda. And in the process, Mother gave him some grace also. So service has its own benefits. But here Mother says he is totally of a different makeup. He doesn't need the path of Karma Yoga. He was more meditative, so he was predominantly a Raj Yogi, or of course a Bhakti Yogi also. But karma wise, or maybe they felt that, Holy Mother felt that Rakhal's temperament is different. So then a disciple says, what about Baburam Maharaj? Because he had seen Baburam Maharaj was so devoted. He used to take care of devotees and serve them, serve even the devotees. Then Mother says, no, not even he. He is also not capable, or he doesn't have the energy or the, I mean, the inclination, or maybe she felt that he cannot be a good sevak. Then the disciple asked, but he is managing the Belur Math. He was the Belur Math manager and he used to very lovingly feed all the guests and other people who used to come at that time. So Mother says that may be, but taking the responsibilities of women, he can at the most make inquiries from a distance. So Premanandji was of a different mentality. It was only Swami Yogananda, the first disciple of Holy Mother, and Swami Sharadananda who had that aptitude or inclination to look after Holy Mother and the other women who were part of her troop, because wherever Holy Mother went, Radhu and her mother and everybody used to be there. So looking after Holy Mother is okay, but looking after the entire group of women was not an easy task. Tremendous patience and a wonderful motherly attitude of mother worship should be there, and that Swami Sharadanandji had. So that's why it says Baburam Maharaj may be very good when he serves the devotees at Belur Math. He is the manager of Belur Math, but he cannot take the responsibilities of women. And here with Mother, all the women stayed. So it was she had so much faith in Saradananda, and she believed that he will be the one who can take care of the women as well. Then the Mother talked about the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, whereupon the disciple asked her, please tell me who these disciples of the Master are. We cannot recognize them. So Mother replies, the disciple is asking, who are the disciples? Some of them have taken Diksha. Thakur did not give Diksha to all. Some people he just gave Diksha by looking at, no mantra. Just by looking, he could inspire a person. So he had 3 types of Diksha, Shambhavi Diksha and Mantra Diksha, and there are other types of Diksha also, which by mere looking at a person, you can transfer spirituality into that person. So he says, we cannot recognize, you have to tell us who are, at least give us the list. So Mother says, I don't know. But it is true that those who had been born with the master in his previous incarnations have accompanied him this time also. So he says, don't think that it is just by chance that these disciples have got the mantra of Thakur and have got the grace of Thakur. They were companions of the Lord in the previous birth. Maybe they had a minor role. Naren and others might have had a bigger role. So, but there were others who came with the master, like Latu Maharaj and all, who used to, who used to serve Holy Mother and others. So, and when Sri Ramakrishna was alive, they served Sri Ramakrishna with their whole heart and soul. But after his passing away, all were not capable except Swami Sharda. That's what Mother says, that it is a different thing to serve Thakur and it's a different thing to serve a group of women. So one has to be very cautious because they have different needs. They can't mix with the monastery. So they have to have a separate arrangement. And Swami Shardanand my Holy Mother, knew she had that. But the disciple says, I don't have any desire to see a four-handed deity like Vishnu and others. I am quite satisfied with what we have. So he says, yes, we are very happy. Whatever wonderful human beings we have come in touch, the inspiring direct disciples of Thakur and Mother, like Brahmananda and all. So he says, we don't have any desire like most of the Puranic scholars or the Puranic devotees. They feel that they should see Vishnu, and there is a description of Vishnu, Shankha, Padma, Gada, and all those things in the hand. Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma. So the four-handed God Vishnu, and there are so many different versions of deities. So disciple says that I don't have a desire to see a four-handed deity. I'm quite satisfied with these wonderful spiritual people, because you see, even today, people seem to tend to have less faith on incarnations because they are so recent. They would rather have faith in the Puranic gods. You ask them, oh, Hanuman, yes, I believe in Ganesha, I believe in Rama, I believe in Krishna. Though they don't have the pictures of those gods, but the four-handed deity Vishnu, the Shivalinga, and all these worships are popular because they are very traditional and they have come from a very long, it has a very long history. So people rather would have faith in that than have faith in incarnation. It is a very, very rare privilege to accept and recognize an incarnation. So when Ramchandra was there is a story in the Ramayana that how many people could recognize Ramchandra as a god? They accepted him as a king, but how many of them recognized him as an avatara? Shabari and a handful of rishis understood, and a handful of rishis could recognize Ramchandra. So also in every incarnation, it takes time. History shows that when they lived, Jesus, for example, how many people believed him? Hardly 12 disciples. Most, and some other devotees like Mary and others. But all the rest of them, they in fact crucified him. So it is not very easy to become a companion of Sri Ramakrishna. So those who have been born during his time, and those who have been fortunate enough to be to get initiation or to maybe get Diksha from these direct disciples, people who had seen Holy Mother, Thakur, and Swamiji. If one is lucky, the merit of so many previous births would be necessary for anybody to become a direct disciple of Thakur or even come in the circle of Sri Ramakrishna. So otherwise people will be satisfied with the four-handed deity. No doubt they are powerful. Any meditation is powerful. But in this age, with every age, there is a peculiarity of that particular age, a uniqueness about that particular age, which is manifest in the avatara. So the avatara, worshipping an avatara becomes a very good sadhana, and We don't have to worship the Puranic gods, because sometimes the response may come late. So mother says that is also the case with me. She says, I also don't believe. What shall we gain by these supernatural visions? I mean, to have a vision of this 400 God, Vishnu and all. For us, the master exists and he is everything. See, Sri Ramakrishna exists. That is a great faith. Swami Vireshwaranji also says, I always, somebody asked him for his message. He said, what message can I give? I believe in truth, and I know that truth is Sri Ramakrishna, that Sat, whom we worship, that Chit and Ananda. So if we believe that the Sat which we are seeking, the truth that we are seeking, we can find in the manifestation of that Sat Chit Ananda, that is Sri Ramakrishna. So Holy Mother also confirms that and says, for us, Sri Ramakrishna is everything. He exists and he is in everything. So we don't have to bother. We will just focus our minds on the wonderful life and teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. Next, after a few days, on 11th February 1913, Udbodhan, this conversation has been taken. Now, disciple says it is after a few months, because the previous conversation was in December 1912, but now it is 11th February. So quite a few months have passed, and the disciple has recorded this. This conversation took place in Udbodhan. So the disciple says, Mother, Swamiji has initiated so many people with the mantra, and you also have initiated so many. They come and go away and are not remembered. I mean, the disciple is a bit confused. He thinks that Holy Mother has initiated so many people. Does she remember all of them? He comes very regularly. He had the connection, luck or the opportunity to visit Udbodhan very regularly. So, Holy Mother, the disciple is worried that what will happen to some of the innumerable disciples whom Mother has initiated. So they have come. They have come, they have taken initiation and gone away. Perhaps they don't get a second chance to meet their Guru, that is Holy Mother. So what will happen to them? They come and go away and are not remembered. What he wants to ask is, if we don't come regularly, will you remember us? So Holy Mother is now giving a beautiful answer. She says, so many people come. Can all be remembered? So she agrees to a certain extent that it is not possible to be familiar with all the disciples. Though all the disciples are dear to Holy Mother, she says there are some special disciples. For some reason, maybe due to the past good karma, they can come often. And so many people come. She says so many people come, they take initiation, then they never show their faces. So how can all be remembered? So then she gives an example. When the fire burns, do not the moths come? It is like that. So one has to get convinced that the fire of spirituality is there in Sri Ramakrishna, in the Holy Mother. If that faith is there, only such people will feel like coming again and again. If you experience some kind of truth or some kind of experience of truth, if you get in these great divine personalities, personages, then only you feel. So the fire burns, but not all the moths come. All the moths which are in the forest, hardly few of them attracted by the fire comes. They come. Whereas you don't see the other moths, they are happy wherever they are. So they prefer to remain in the dark. So the disciple asks, it is like that. She says it is like that. So all cannot come. Those who know about the light, those who have realized the significance or the importance, or maybe those who understand the importance of the mantra, they will come more often. Then the disciple asks another question. They take the mantra. I mean, the disciples who are not so lucky to frequent their Guru or Holy Mother. So they take the mantra, but what do they get? we find the man remains as he was. Now, this is a question which disciple is asking on behalf of those who have perhaps taken the mantra, but does he remain where he was? What do they actually get? I mean, what happens to that category of disciples who are not frequenting this place? So he thinks mother is partial to some and but mother says something very significant. Power passes through the mantra. The guru's power goes to the disciple and the disciples come to the guru. That is why the guru at the time of initiation takes upon himself the sins of the disciples and suffers so much from physical maladies. Now, it cannot be the law of conservation of energy says that you just can't create energy. You have to transform energy. So whatever you have, if you give in exchange, you have to get something. You just can't transfer things like that. So it may be possible, according to Holy Mother, that sometimes if some of the physical maladies which the Guru suffers from may be the result of absorbing some of the sins of the disciple. That is why it is incumbent upon the disciples to do a lot of japa if they really don't want the Guru to suffer. Somebody asked Swami Vireshwaranji, was a disciple of Holy Mother, you have initiated so many people. We are a little bit upset to see you suffering, because he suffered from the same disease as Sri Ramakrishna did. He had the cancer of the throat. So also people used to ask Thakur, perhaps because you initiated Girish, you perhaps took upon yourself all the sins. And he partially agreed also. So some of the sins of Girish, or most of the sins, he had to take because he had surrendered everything to Girish. So he says, so the disciple asks, so what will happen to those who don't do japa, or those who don't take seriously? That is why Holy Mother says, yes, the Guru at the time of initiation has to take upon himself the sins of the disciple, and that is why he suffers so much from physical maladies. Even Holy Mother's life, we can see, towards the end of his life, she had to suffer a lot. Then she says, if the disciple commits a sin, that affects the Guru too. On the other hand, a Guru is benefited if the disciple is good. So it's not always that he has to take upon the sins. He sometimes benefits from good disciples. If some disciples are doing a lot of japa, they say, the father feels very proud and honored if the son or daughter excels in something. So people say, oh, he's the father of so and so. So the father gets name and fame and recognition because of the son's accomplishments. So also Holy Mother says that if the Guru is, if the disciple is good, there are many disciples who are good and who can benefit the Guru as well. It's not that the Guru has to take the sins. So if some of the disciples who are really good, they compensate for some of them who are perhaps not so serious about their mantra and the initiation. Some disciples, that is why some disciples make quick progress and some do it slowly. So the Guru has no say in this, because some of them, if they are not willing, how can they make progress? But there are some who makes progress. That's why she says some may get it slowly, but some make quick progress. It depends on the tendencies of the mind acquired by one's past deeds. So here comes the idea of samskara, which we discussed, that even the highest yogi or the greatest yogi, even he has to suffer the consequences. I mean, he has to suffer the consequences of the prarabdha of the some of the samskaras which are in seed form. So unless the seeds are burnt, that is why I say we call it is a dagda bija avastha. Bija means seed. Dagda means fried. So a fried seed does not sprout. So till all our samskaras are burnt, we will not get liberated. So the tendencies of the mind are carried to the next birth. That's the only thing. That's why the Ishopanishad in the last verse says, Krito Smara, do good deeds, think of your good deeds, whatever you have done, because they are the only asset you have. When we leave this world, we don't go with all the wealth all the gross things which we have attained, all the name, fame, everything is left behind when the body goes away. So all the wealth, all the property, everything, properties, everything has to be left behind. But what goes with the human soul? It is these tendencies of the mind, the samskaras, which are there in the Karana Sharira. We know there is a gross body, which is known as the Sthula Sharira. Then we have the subtle body, which is the intermediate body, which we can say as Sukshma Sharira, which is made up of the mind. And then there is the Karana Sharira, where Karana means cause, the causal body. What do you mean by the causal body? The causal body is one where the tendencies are, as it were, stored in seed form. So the next time, in the next birth, when it gets a suitable body, it starts fructifying, provided you provide the right manure, the right soil. Just as a seed, even if it is lying for thousands of years, and suddenly those seeds are planted, even the dried seeds, and sufficient water, sunlight, and all the conditions are fulfilled, then you will find the tree sprouts. I mean, the seed sprouts and grows into a big tree. So the tendencies are the only things which accompany a human being when he sheds his mortal coil, when he gives up his physical body. So so that is why they say, if you waste your time, or if we waste our time gathering all the gross things which are anyway not going to go with us, then it is a wastage of human life, human endeavor. So the tendencies of the mind of the past deeds, if they are good, if you have inherited those, then you become a good disciple. That is why Rakhal or Swami Brahmananda hesitates about giving initiation. He hesitates to give initiation. And he sends people whom he doubts that these people may not be sincere. He used to send them to Holy Mother Sharda Devi. He said to me, Mother, as soon as I initiate a disciple, I fall ill. The very idea of giving initiation makes me feel feverish. So one day, all these are conversations of Holy Mother. She seems to be telling the disciple that you have to take your diksha or the mantra that you have received very seriously. You see, once a great soul like Brahmananda says, he used to hesitate, and if possible, if mother was there nearby, he used to simply send, because he knew that mother had that infinite capacity to initiate people and take up all the sins whatever they had. But Raja Maharaj or Swami Brahmanandji used to feel feverish. The moment he initiated, there used to be some reaction. One Swami sent a boy to the Holy Mother for initiation. So she is narrating an incident, heard all details from him and said, you have your own hereditary Vaishnava Guru. So in Bengal, mostly in Bengal, there is a tradition that people are normally asked to go to their hereditary gurus. There are hereditary gurus means normally they are householders, but because they are the regular priests who visit the home, because people can't be going in search of a guru everywhere. So they normally prefer the father will take initiation as long as that hereditary guru is there. Maybe then the son becomes the hereditary guru of that family. So the grandson and the others will take initiation from him. So that is one way among the Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas normally are not monks. So they take initiation from family gurus, Kula Guru, they call them Kula Gurus. So take initiation from them. So after hearing from this boy, Holy Mother said, perhaps she felt it is not possible for her. Even in some cases, she refused initiation to some people. So whatever may be the reason, the mother did not initiate him. Now this is what Arupananda observed. Normally, she would initiate everybody who were sent to her by Swami Brahmananda. If Brahmananda felt doubtful whether he should initiate this person or not, he used to simply send them to Holy Mother. But Holy Mother also sometimes refused. So whatever may be the reason, Holy Mother did not initiate him. After supper, now this is being related by the Arupananda, who is recording these conversations. He says, after supper, I went to bring a beetle roll. The Holy Mother was trying. Normally, after lunch or dinner, these people, after supper also, they used to chew a beetle roll. That is, it helps in digestion also. So we call it pan. The Holy Mother was tying mosquito curtains for the children in the next room. I heard her speaking to the mad aunt. Children mean the children of the mad aunt Radhu. So she had a daughter, and then there were so many. Radhu's mother was there, who was Surabala, whose daughter was Radhu, and she was a young child at that time. So I heard her speaking to the mad aunt. Don't take me for an ordinary mortal. You abuse me so recklessly. I do not take it to heart, considering it only as so much noise. If I take notice, who will save you? So mother sometimes used to get irritated. She had tremendous patience to look after these mad people who were practically thrust upon her. She had to spend so much time taking care of this mad aunt and her mad daughter. So they were not normal people. So, and they used to abuse her right and left, make unreasonable demands, and sometimes they'll say, I want this, I want that. And sometimes Holy Mother used to get so much irritated, but still she used to keep her calm. And then once she said, you abuse me so recklessly, I don't take it to heart. She said, I don't take it seriously. I bear everything patiently, considering it as only so much noise. So that's a very good psychological ploy to see. Holy Mother has led her, she led her life to demonstrate before the world that I am not in a very comfortable situation. I just don't give advice. I just show people how one can bear all these troubles. So it's a demonstration. It's a live demonstration of a living spirituality, a practical spirituality. So she says, he heard, this Arupananda heard her saying loudly to Radhu that, you see, I consider your abuse and your reckless abuse, you are scolding me day and night for silly reasons, troubling me so much. I am very patient. I just consider it to be so much noise only. I just think, okay, she's making a noise. I don't take it seriously. If I take notice of it, because she knows, Holy Mother knows, if I take notice of it, and if I curse you, or maybe if I get irritated, then who will save you? It is to your advantage that I am alive. So this is what Holy Mother was telling Radhu. Just think that it is a fortune, it is your great fortune that I am alive. Your daughter is yours only. I am here only until she grows up. So he's telling the mad aunt that your daughter, you're so possessed or so possessive about your daughter, but your daughter is yours only. I'm not going to, because his mother was this mad aunt, used to sometimes feel jealous because the daughter used to always go to Holy Mother. So sometimes she used to abuse that she is not loving because of her bad nature, because of her irritating nature. Naturally, the child would prefer to go to Holy Mother. So that's why he says, your daughter is yours only. I'm just serving her. I am here only until she grows up. I'm doing it because you can't look after your daughter. That's why I'm looking after you. Otherwise, what is attachment for me? Do you think I am attached to your daughter? I have no attachment to anybody. I can cut it off this moment. When I pass away one day like camphor, you will never get a trace of me. So Holy Mother also, see, we don't see this. She was having this intense detachment towards the world. It was a show of attachment which she showed towards Radhu and all, because that allowed her to stay in this world. Otherwise, she had no desires. She had, that is why people confuse and they say, oh, did not Holy Mother live with the family and all these things? Yes, she lived, no doubt. She bore all these troubles. So also it gives us a lot of worldly people inspiration. But that doesn't mean that she was attached to these things, just as worldly people are. So people of the world can learn this lesson from this statement. So she's clearly telling, what is attachment for me? She is yours. I'm serving her. I can cut off any moment. And it happened towards the end of her life, just a few days before her Mahasamadhi. The same Holy Mother who used to be so careful and so nicely take care of Radhu, he said, I don't want to see anybody's face. She was totally absorbed in herself. So that is why she is telling, I shall just vanish like camphor one day and you will not get a trace of me. So she seems to be telling Radhu, Radhu's mother, that don't abuse me. You are lucky that I am bearing all your scolding and all your words, and you are abusing me recklessly. But you don't realize that I am doing it. Otherwise, if I don't do it, who will do it? And who will save you? So this great savior that Holy Mother was, she was so compassionate that even a person who was irritating her, those people also she tolerated because no harm should come to them. So the mad aunt now says, when did I scold you? I just said a few words. The trouble is when you give without reserve. So the mad aunt knew that I have nowhere else to go. If mother doesn't stay here, I can't look after my daughter. So he said, I didn't scold you. She is afraid now. Because seeing Holy Mother being a little upset, yeah, she says, I just said a few words. She tries to defend himself. She was of the opinion that Holy Mother should keep all her money for Radhu. Now she was so possessive about her daughter, and she wanted, because Holy Mother used to spend whatever money came to her. She was not running after money, but some people used to give some money, and she used to unselfishly spend it in the service of devotees. So Radhu's mother was such a jealous person that she Radhu's mother used to get upset and say that all the money, she was so possessive that Holy Mother should keep all the money for Radhu. That was her opinion. So everybody knew. So Swami Shardanand had to nicely balance, keep a balance and see that these things, the mad aunt was kept under control. Otherwise, she used to get irritable every time and scold mother, and there was so much of turmoil in that family. So that shows what infinite patience mother had. So mother says, mine is a childlike nature. Now mother is explaining why she used to give away everything to anybody who asked. Do I keep meticulous accounts? I give to whoever asks. Anybody coming to mother, there were so many women coming for some pecuniary help. Everybody did not come for spirituality. So whatever Holy Mother had, food, clothes, whatever extra she had, if somebody asked, she says, I have a nature like that of a child. The child does not discriminate. It's not possessive about which things to keep for himself. If somebody asks, if the child is in a good mood, that child will simply give it. So she says, I don't like to keep these accounts. Whom have I given? Whether they should feel gratitude for what I have done to them. All those things did not concern her. She didn't keep any record. Whatever came whatever she used to get, she used to simply pass it on to whoever wanted it. So there is a beautiful incident in the life of Swami Brahmananda. One day he was meditating in Uttarkashi. So he was doing tapasya. So in Uttarkashi there is there are lot of devotees, especially the business devotees, the Marwadis and all. They think that if they give gifts to these sadhus who are meditating, they will get some merit. So people go, and they know that some people don't accept gifts. Some monks, they were so strict that Swami Brahmananda had taken a vow that he will not accept any gift. But when he was in deep meditation, he did not notice that a very big, very costly blanket, seeing him bare-bodied and did not have enough to cover himself, the one of the rich person who had, one of a rich businessman who had come there, he just kept a very costly shawl which he had in front of Swami Brahmananda. So Brahmananda was so absorbed in meditation, he didn't bother what was being kept and who. Then after some time, but he was seeing that somebody has kept something. And then he noticed it was a very costly shawl. But he was so dispassionate about it that within a few hours, he did not even bother to take it. It was just lying in front of him as it was offered. A thief came, and seeing such a beautiful blanket and thinking that this Swami is meditating, though he had his eyes slightly open, he could see, but he was in a very different mood. So that thief took away the blanket. Then some of his brahmacharis and others who were there, they said, "Hare, there was a blanket and somebody has taken." He said, "Yes, Thakur gave and Thakur took away. So Sri Krishna gave this blanket. I didn't ask for it. It came and somebody else was supposed to get it. So it was his karma, perhaps. The thief had some good karma which enabled him to get a gift. So the person who gave the gift had something due. He had some dues with this thief, perhaps, in the previous birth. So he came, he got rid of his karma, and the thief got what he deserved, or maybe what he was destined to get." So he says, "Why should I come in the picture? I am totally detached." So that's why Holy Mother says, I am totally detached. I am not serving Radhu because I'll get something, some merit, or because it is my duty. So that's the difference between serving people who belong to your family in a worldly way and in a detached way. So returning from Banaras, the Holy Mother had stayed a few days in Calcutta. The previous conversation was in Banaras. So now she has come to Calcutta and then left for Jairambati. On 25th February, she reached Kolpada. She was given the room next to the shrine. If you go to Kolpada, which is on the way to Jairambati, there's a beautiful Jagadamba ashram there. And the room is still there. The room where next to the shrine where Holy Mother lived. They have kept the cot and everything wherever Mother stayed. So she was given room next to the shrine. I brought out a banyan seed and said, "See, Mother, this seed is smaller than the seed of red spinach. And yet from this comes a huge tree. What a wonder." She replied, "Why not? Just see how small is the bija, the mystic syllable of the Lord's name. So yet by constant repetition of the bija, from that springs forth in time spiritual consciousness, devotion, love, and what not you can achieve by this." So what is the wonder if a small seed gives rise to a banyan tree? That is how Prakriti works. So that is the importance of bija. And then we came to Jairambati and sat for the meal at night. Someone said, "Mother, did you notice how inconsiderate these people," that is Mother's brothers, they were fighting for the property. Holy Mother had two brothers. So they used to call her Mama. So they were two mamas. And someone came and in front of the disciple remarked to Holy Mother that, "Did you notice how these these mamas are? They knew of your coming, yet they did not send anyone to receive you at the river crossing. They wanted all the benefit, all the money which their sister could give them, but they never cared for her, never tried even to serve. It is the disciples who served her." Thereupon the mother said to the eldest brother Prasanna, "Why did you not send a man to help me cross the river? My children," Radhu and others, my children in the sense disciples, "accompanied me. You did not do yourself, nor did you send a man. I have come all the way and you should have helped." The brother replied, "I did not do so for fear of Kali," the next brother. Prasanna and Kali, they were two brothers. So he said, "I was afraid of him. He might complain that I was trying to win you over to my side." They were so materialistic, these brothers, that thinking that if I go, the other brother might think that I'm trying to get some favor from my sister. So do I not know what you are and what these devotees are? I know everything, but I am helpless. Please bless me. So Uncle Kali, or his name was, he's saying that Uncle Prasanna, who was one of the brothers, says, uh, uh, and he tells, I know who you are, how great you are. And I didn't come only because I was afraid of my other brother. He will scold me, abuse me, and blame me if I had gone there. So I just didn't go. So he's trying to give a false excuse. And then he says, please bless me. I know you are great. Bless me that I may have you as my sister in my future births also. I do not want anything else. It's just lip service. He wanted all the money. In fact, they quarreled. Swami Shardananji had to come and settle the quarrel between Prasanna and Kali. So the two brothers fought for some share in the property, and Swami Shardananji had to solve it. But here he is trying to show off, saying that I don't want anything else. I just want to be your brother in the next birth also, because you are so great. Then mother understands that it's not coming from the heart. So he says, do you think that I shall be born again in your family? I have had enough of this time. She was so angry. She said, because they were quarreling with each other. Said, do you think I will be born in your family, that I'll be your sister? Sri Rama once prayed. She is quoting Sri Rama in the Ramayana. Never may I be born again in the womb of Kaushalya. Kaushalya was his mother. One would expect people are so keen to be born again. The grandchildren, they feel the grandchildren were our ancestors. Many of the people think, oh, my grandfather has been born again as my son, as if they have, but really spiritual people, they don't want to be born again to the same family. So she says, Rama once prayed, never may I be born again in the womb of Kaushalya. And to be born in your family again. Kaushalya was such a noble lady. But with all the nobility and other things, even Rama was so detached that he did not want to be born as a human being again. That is what true people who want freedom. He says, our father was a devotee of Rama and always helped others. Our mother too had such a kind heart. That is why I was born in this family. So she seems to be saying that, telling her brothers that don't think because of you I have been born in this family. It is because of my noble parents. So I have nothing to do with you. In fact, there is a incident where Swami Vivekananda once told his brothers, you don't marry. So they asked, it's there in some reminiscences. His younger brother, who later on wrote so many books. So he says, Swamiji told him specifically, both the brothers, not to marry, because if they marry, he said, the spiritual energy of a particular race is all absorbed by the spiritual personality, and then very little is left. So the brothers, sisters, or even their descendants, they become very ordinary or even problematic people. So normally you find, that's why Swamiji believed that if his brothers married, then maybe their children will be born with some deformity or with evil tendencies, because the whole race, that is why they say that if a spiritual person is born, he can liberate his ancestors. 7 generations will benefit, because if they are not reborn, if they are still waiting to be born, or they will be. So you do a good favor. A great person, when he is born in a family, he does wonderful, but later on in that, the descendants of that particular spirituality, not his own descendants, because he would have, perhaps Swamiji did not marry, but he told his brothers also not to marry. So one day Uncle Prasanna came to mother and said, sister, I hear that you appeared to someone in a dream and initiated him. You also told him that he would be liberated. You have brought us up from childhood, and shall we remain as we are? So Uncle Prasanna, who is another brother, came and once asked, said, you have initiated, somebody came and told me that you initiated somebody in a dream, and also promised him that he will be liberated. But what about us? We were born as brothers, and definitely you would have, you'll take care of our future and liberate us also. And shall we remain as we are? In reply, the mother said, in reply, you see, she did not promise her brothers mukti. She says the master's will shall prevail. And look here, Sri Krishna was so intimate with the shepherd boys. He played with them, laughed and wandered with them and shared their food. But did they know who he really was? So it doesn't really matter whether one is born in the family of great people. One has to recognize the greatness, appreciate the spiritual quality, and try to get some of those spiritual qualities in one. Then whether one is born in that family or is just a disciple and an unknown person also, if he has the devotion, if he has the spiritual inclination, he can get benefit. So I'll we'll close now, and I think we don't have time for questions. Anyway, there is a lot of, I'll just check the chat. Oh, did Holy Mother ever initiate any Western devotee? Now, I'll have to find out, because I think she has initiated, because quite a few disciples of Swamiji, if they had not been initiated by Swamiji himself, then perhaps she would have given Diksha to somebody. There was Gurudas Maharaj, Swami Atulananda, but he was, I think, initiated by Swamiji. There were quite a few Western disciples. We'll have to find out. But there is a possibility that some of the women disciples would have got initiation from Holy Mother. Now, worldly knowledge is called avidya and vidya is spiritual. Is that so? If so, do we need to acquire both of them? So, yes, definitely, as long as you feel that you have some duties in the world, you require a little bit of avidya also. Because avidya, we are living in this world, our living in this world itself is avidya. So, avidya will stick to us, and we will have to be practical and get that knowledge to survive in avidya. But vidya is spiritual, and to get vidya, you have to gradually cut yourself as much as possible from avidya and try to make the vidya as the basis of your life. If spirituality is the basis of your life, then avidya doesn't harm you so much as if you pursue it separately. Yes. So I think there are no more questions. I'll take your leave. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Next Sunday, perhaps I will not have the Gita class because I have a second vaccine appointment at 5:30. So 5:45 class is not possible. I may have to write to the university that the Gita class will not be there because the appointment was available only at 5:30. So I need to take my second dose of vaccine. So next Saturday, there will be no class.